Hello, I'm Kathleen McLean, Assistant Curator, Talks and Programs and Screenings at the AGO, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for today's conversation with artist Andrew James Patterson. Hello, Andrew.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Good. Whenever we gather, even virtually, we begin by considering where we are and the responsibilities we have as either guests or hosts on this territory and our responsibilities as treaty people. The AGO operates on land that's the territory of the Anishinaabe Mississauga Nation and also the territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Toronto is also governed by a treaty between the federal government of Canada and the Mississaugas of the Credit Anishinaabe Nation. And Andrew, I just want to say how excited I am to speak with you. It's been like 6 months of a pandemic here in Toronto, and I usually bump into you at openings around town and haven't done that for months. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
For those of you who are joining us right now in real time with possibly questions for Andrew, there's a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen where you can make that happen by clicking on it. Before we begin, I'd like to say thank you to TD and the Ready Commitment, our lead sponsor of talks and performances, for generously supporting this talk. So before we start, Andrew, I'm going to read a kind of best of version of your bio before we have a conversation and look at some of your recent work. And if I leave out anything that you feel is critical, let me know. Andrew James Patterson is an interdisciplinary artist living in Toronto. His work engages with language, philosophy, community, and capitalism through video, performance, writing, film, and music. His media artworks have shown locally, nationally, internationally, in Seoul, Bangalore, Montreal, Buenos Aires, Amsterdam, Paris, New York City, many other centers. Andrew's artist book collection, Correction, was published in 2016 by Kunstverein Toronto and Moose of Milan. And his novelette, Not Joy Division, was published by Impulse B in Toronto in early 2018. And in 2019, Patterson received a Governor General's Award for his work in visual and media arts, which was a very big deal. So, Andrew, first question, where are you and how are you?
I'm in the little combination room studio that I live in and have lived in for quite some time. How am I? I guess I'm okay. I'm up because I've been through the day looking forward to this event. I mean, I'm boxed in. I'm not going out to the places I normally go out. I don't see a lot of the people that I normally see. I don't do a lot of the recreational activities that are part of my life. So yeah, that's a comment on how I am.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I alter between being calm and being quite restless, which is probably not that different from you or from other people in this COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, it's like this very extended moment. Now, in talking about what we might talk about, you have a pretty vast body of work, but we thought it might be interesting to focus on some of the things that you've done most recently. So as a kind of warm up to looking at some of that work, I thought I might start by asking you about your interest in lists and wordplay and language and the manipulation of language.
The list, the list thing has gone back a long time. I mean, it's gone on long enough. I can't begin to say where I became so obsessed with it. Like, I've just had this whole thing that bliss. Some of it does come through a certain strain in pop music or alt rock music in the 70s that I can say, oh, Roxy Music, Talking Heads, B-52s, there's the one song that's literally a list of 52 girls' names.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was into this before I realized it was kind of a trope of conceptual art and just an obsession with listing and all that. But I guess it's a close cut, but lists are a close cousin of inventory. And inventory, I don't know. I mean, it's been part of my life,
And
but I
thinking of,
mean, it's just, I've had jobs where it's like, okay, part of the job I've worked at is it's inventory for the next 3 days, something like that. We do this. So this is here, this is here, this is here. But then part of inventory also becomes like, oh, this is also here. Or a close cousin is like, oh God, I actually did that. And there's photographic documentation. There's no way I can say it didn't happen.
so there's something kind of deeply methodical, but also revelatory about the practice, maybe.
Well, I don't think it's that unique to me, but I do have this. Yeah, I mean, I've always had this fascination with lists and like item one, item two, item three, or grouping, or maybe associating certain people or places, or for that matter, events. And sometimes they're in parallel time, and sometimes they're across history. I've always had an interest. I suppose it comes out of the fact that I also do some editing, A, in my own work, and B, I've done some editing in publishing. And yeah, whenever I'm in trouble, find a list.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I kind of feel like that's like the perfect segue for maybe the most recent work that you've made, which is called Listen Capitals. Before we bring it up, can you tell us a little bit about it? Maybe set it
Well,
up.
it's essentially out of a couple of components. It actually is a series of lists of places or names. A lot of them are real people who I've grouped together. They're all in tens. They're all lists of 10. And then there's 10 world capitals of countries that hold significant power in the dynamic of the world. I mean, there are actually more countries than that do, but I picked 10.
You were sort of working with 10, so that's
Yeah.
where you had to
So there's
stop.
some that aren't in there. For example, Paris was close, but no cigar, or there's some others. But and then also the initial image of the Capitol buildings of these various cities are subjected to, since there's that one's not, the first one's not modified, 9 modifications adding up to 10 images.
Mhm.
And it's all the same image. It's all the same, like at this point, in comes the mirror image. At this point, in comes the overblown. At this point, in comes the painting image. Although there are different degrees of intensity for each one according to the actual image. There's some aesthetic control in there as opposed to just whatever happens goes.
Okay, so I think maybe what we'll do for kicks is, Danny, can you start the video and we will listen to it silently and then start talking over it after we've seen it for a bit.
Well, the soundtrack is also a key. Yeah.
maybe we can bring down Eric Satie and keep the video going. Is that possible? Yeah, it is. There we go. Okay, so first thing I thought of when I saw Listen Capitals for the first time was how super painterly you've become, but maybe this has always been an impulse in your work. Can you talk about the capitals and the work you've done on those images?
Well, it's just crude modifications on an editing system on this relatively conventional laptop. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I did, well, I mean, I downloaded the program. I did download a video editing program, which is a variation of the Windows Movie Maker. This is a PC, so it's not iMovie, it's Windows Movie Maker.
Mm-hmm.
And there's options of modification that you can load into an image. So it's just, oh, I just picked 10. Actually, the order seemed a bit reversed in the last one, but it's too late to change it or whatever. But the painter thing, I don't know. I mean, I've always been friends with painters, and I've always looked at painting and all of that. Although I'm hardly an encyclopedia on the subject of painting, I'd have to go back to school to become that. But I mean, I've always liked paint. I've dabbled in painting.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I just wondered if it was kind of like this thing where, because a lot of your videos are like non-camera, more recently anyway, and I'm wondering if they led to the interest in painting, or if your interest in painting led to this kind of direction in the work.
Probably about 50-50.
Yeah, so it's a half-half scenario.
Yeah, like I mean, recently some of the videos like lists and capitals and also framing device used also downloaded stock photographs or photographs where the photographer is unknown and we don't have to get into that business and all of that. Where for a while I was kind of avoiding photography, but I'm hardly I mean, I like photography. I'd always look at photography and look at pictures, and so photography's made sort of a comeback into my work as well. But then street photographs are like, yeah, let them register and then process them, so there goes the painter.
And then you've also, I mean, you're a musician. How did you land on Eric Satie for this one?
Well, because I didn't have anything of my own, I could just load in, but also Eric Satie is just, a minor obsession of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the particular Satie piece is Vexations. Do you know the story of Vexations?
I do not know the story of Vexations.
Okay, without going on about Vexations for too long, it's a manuscript Satie wrote. Like you see basically this fairly simple melody being played and repeated. But Satie's instructions were that it was to be repeated 840 times, and one should prepare themselves to have the stamina to do so. And John Cage found this manuscript and took it literally, but he hired 15 different pianists to do like an all-night thing. I think it took 18 hours.
Okay, so the choice makes a lot of sense now.
Well, Mike Alexier, I think, did a Vexations night at Nuit Blanche, I think, 2010 or something?
Mm-hmm.
In the BMO, in the, I don't know, the place at the foot of Bay Young, whatever that building is called.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but I know where you mean. Yeah. Okay, so other random questions about this work. I mean, I looked at the 10 lists and the groupings, and some of them made immediate sense to me, and others less so. But I'm just wondering why you didn't lead with Judy Garland.
Why I used Judy Garland?
No, why you didn't lead with Judy Garland. I felt like that was a really strong hook, but instead it's you start with capitalism, communism, socialism, which does make a certain kind of sense given the capitals. And then all of the divas are kind of like they follow.
Oh, well, the divas are linked by the fact that they're all 10 female singers who have great followings among gay men.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a zillion others I could have put in there.
Mm-hmm.
but that's kind of the link. But I don't announce the link. Why the link? Where all the isms are isms. There's a reason why they're isms, even though some of them become anti-isms. And I mean, saturationism is one I just made up.
I wondered about that one.
Well, I have a side music project with two other fellows called Burwatch, and we had a number we recorded called Saturationism, which contains that list.
Ah, okay.
But I mean, in some ways, it's like, oh, saturationism, which could be enough isms, but it also gives a play on the fact that I'm fond of making saturated this and saturated that, and I always go to the saturation button in Photoshop or whatever. I mean, in some ways, the effects on the photos, like this computer doesn't have Photoshop on it. I mean, I'm doing something not that different than I'd be doing in Photoshop, except maybe the crudeness of it is the appeal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another list that's in there is like 10 oxymorons.
Those were nice. I don't know if people caught them, but
Well,
okay.
Scientologist, psychiatrist is an oxymoron.
Yes, that gave me a giggle. But like, actually, can you explain, since I have you here, Bo Diddley's Bolero? It's just like
Oh, it's just something that's impossible.
with Bo Diddley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I like to think almost everything's possible, except Bo Diddley's Bolero is absolutely.
you gotta draw a line somewhere, I
Well,
suppose.
no, because Bo Diddley refers to a certain rhythm that just isn't the Bo Diddley rhythm.
Hmm.
The bolero is its own rhythm,
Hmm.
as is the Bo Diddley rhythm.
Yeah, no, that is a good, and kind of maybe it's the most hilarious part of the video, because you kind of end, not to spoil anything, but the last, actually, we're going through it now.
Yeah.
These are all artists who died by suicide.
Yes. Well, I think about the subject,
Hmm.
and it's not, I could have had a lot more.
That's true. There are definitely
And
more than 10.
and I also think with COVID that there are a lot of people. I think it's probably underreported, but with COVID, there are a lot of people who basically sell the hell with it.
Hmm.
Is this epidemic ever going to be over, or what's going to be afterwards? And an epidemic can coincide with serious depression, and people make that decision.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't really have
Yeah,
a.
it can feel interminable.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, it's different than AIDS or something, even
Hmm.
though there's an element of it with both. With AIDS, there's an element of like, I'm not going to let this goddamn virus determine what I'm going to do in my life. I'm going to, be out there. I'm going to have fun. I'll practice safe sex, but I'll also have fun. Where
Hmm.
COVID is kind of a different thing. It's like, although at the beginning of it, it's like, oh, it's affecting people who are considered disposable. Oh yeah, the elderly. The way that
Hmm.
AIDS was thought of, like, well, it kills fags and junkies, good.
Hmm.
And now people are discovering with COVID that, persons of color are seeming to be more susceptible. And it's more prevalent in Toronto, anyways, in areas that are not considered to be as affluent as, say, those in the downtown, or that, it's like the poorer suburbs. And
Yeah, it's definitely highlighting vulnerabilities for sure.
yeah, exactly. It's hitting people who are already vulnerable. So, yeah, I mean, that could be why I put those 10 people in there. Yeah, I mean, you recognize them because
Hmm.
there's enough names in there.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So let's see. And I think you end with Washington, right? That's
Yeah, I mean, I was
the
also
final
using
building.
the alphabet, which is also a bit of a. Do I start at Berlin? I think so.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Berlin to Washington. I mean, the alphabet is such an arbitrary sequencing device. It's almost absurdist. It's like the phone book. It's like there's a book I worked on. I was an editor on it as a YYZ book. Do you know the artist Gary Kibbens?
Yeah.
Yeah, friend of mine who I think is utterly brilliant. He works in some of these same territories. Actually, Gary influenced me, you know, with his obsession with sequencing and all of that. But we were running out of, like, how are we going to sequence these essays and scripts? And with Gary, of course, the scripts are essays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, well, we'll just do them alphabetically. You know, and it's quite, yeah, we
Sometimes
solved the
the
problem.
simplest answer
Yeah.
is the way to go.
Like,
I wonder if you, I was going to ask you if you felt an affinity with other artists who've worked with language. So when we spoke earlier, we talked about a book you were included in that had folks like Laurel Woodcock and Tom Dean and Steve Ranke.
The John Marriott book, I've Got to Stop Talking to Myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that?
Yeah, I was flattered to be asked to be in that. I mean, I sort of came to know, I mean, John and I are friends. We sort of became friends because he asked me to contribute to that book. But sure, there are other artists in there who I do feel an affinity with, like Steve Ranke or Susan Keeley or Laurel Woodcock. She was such a sharp observer, you know, or others. But, you know, language. Yeah, I mean, language draws me towards also my interest in concrete poetry. Like the idea that words are pictures, pictures are words, but that can be taken very differently, like a word itself. You see a word and you see a picture of what the word is without having to see the picture. But that can also refer to the way the layout of books of concrete poetry with no images other than the words and what they look like on the paper. I mean, my image in concrete poetry, I think it comes out of the fact I'm also interested in painting and also in sculpture. Some of them are like, oh, I'd like to build that. And I'm one of the most mechanically ungifted people in the world. I cannot begin to imagine being a sculptor.
But you can do it with words, which is sort of an effortless segue into framing device. We will just show a little bit of it, but that is actually has some examples of your concrete poetry in it. So maybe we could bring up that, a little bit of that video.
There's some I've posted on your site also.
Mm-hmm. Oh, except it's doing that thing where it doesn't work. So maybe we'll try once more. It was one of those things where we tried it.
Did I hit the escape and maybe that would work at my end?
No. Danny has like this magical ability to make videos display the way they're meant to, but it might just take him a second.
I've also posted some of my drawings that use concrete poetry on the site you've given me access to. Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I have a secret, and I can't talk about it for 37 more days. I can only discuss this matter with those directly involved. I can't tell my ex-lover, who remains one of my best friends. I can't tell one of my best friends, who I suspect would like to be my lover. I can't tell any of my contemporaries or younger friends. I have to keep my big trap shut. So I largely avoid people. I go to a lot of movies. More plot-oriented movies than I usually go to. I kill time on social media where I rarely have to say anything. The stupid American president blathers on about his anti-Mexican wall. I was recently in Berlin. Checkpoint Charlie is now a tourist trap, for Christ's sakes. The world now seems divided between ruthless strongmen and the remains of neoliberal free trade. Meanwhile, one of my neighbor's turds seems stuck to the shared toilet. I express disgust and then realize it's probably not his fault. Shit gets stuck. That's why it's shit.
3 days left until I am permitted to reveal my big secret. Today is also the 11th day of the year. The big revelation day is the 44th day of the year. Those double repeat numbers, of course, end with the mythical 99. I still have to mind my big trap with my ex-lovers and best friends and working associates. Not to mention my landlord and my grocer and my bank tellers. I don't have to worry about spilling the beans to my psychiatrist because I don't have a psychiatrist. I must be especially careful with my hairdresser because he and I are both consummate gossips. Hair and barber salons are prime locations for both delightful and malicious gossip. And gossip does make the world go round, whether fortunately or catastrophically.
Okay, maybe we'll start talking again and wrap this. Thanks, Annie. So this is just for folks joining us watching. It's a much longer video, right? It's about a half hour.
Yeah, 27 minutes.
Yeah, but I love, there's so many good lines in this one. And
Well, it's my writing. I use the two colleagues I do the band Derwat with, the electronic group Derwat, did the voices. And you don't hear my voice until about the 14 minutes to go mark.
mm-hmm. And what made you use other voices?
I've been using other voices in my work. I've been trying to get away from my own dominant voiceover. There's another video that I've posted the link to on the AGO site called, what the hell is it called? It's called...
Is it agoraphobia?
That's it, agoraphobia,
Mm-hmm.
where I work with someone who's just absolutely opposite me, a woman, less than half my age, who, who's just become acquainted with, in terms of in the performance sort of world, performance video world, asked her if she wanted to do this thing. I paid it. And it's like, I just wanted someone else reading the words as if they're just reading it, not performing it, just like they found it on a desk. And it's like, oh, what's this? I mean, in this thing, Lewis and Kevin, the other two chaps, if anything, reveal themselves as being closeted actors.
Yeah, so even though it's not your voice, there's still a lot of definite Andrew James Patterson in there. The line about not having to worry about telling your psychiatrist because you don't have a psychiatrist seems somehow very, very you.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, I mean, again, that's like a certain type of style where there's a word in it and then the next clause repeats the words. I mean, it's a bit David Burnout.
How
are you in love with your problems? I'm not interested in your problems,
It's like that. So, I mean, the other deal about this one that's kind of interesting to me is that it has this, there's like a kind of diaristic impulse in the work. And you've also been doing a lot of writing and keeping a diary kind of for the last while, right?
It's diaristic in a way also that for each of the 37 days before the public announcement of the big secret, I would either do a drawing in a crude paint program on my previous computer that I was using, a big box computer that, not this one, had this crude paint program. But in some ways you could do some Photoshop-y things in it, like, here goes a rectangle. Now I'm going to fill the rectangle this color. And I was also pasting in some of the concrete poems into these drawings. Which is odd because they're in Word or something. I've seen work recently where an artist does this with stuff that's in Excel. And it's like, oh my God, why not? But yeah, so it's diaristic. But then some days there'd be like the morning Google image wouldn't just be like, morning Google. There'd be like, this is Bobby Bowden's day. So, so you download the image and process it. I would download the image into the Paint program and then process it and do, you know, tone altering things to it and all of that. So there's a diaristic element for sure. So it, you know, so this is maybe more diaristic than something like lists and capitals, or an extreme example of non-diaristic would be my video narrative, which is all the word and until finally I change one letter and get end.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a while, which is the point. It takes a while.
That's true. And
That could have
then,
maybe benefited by having a vexation soundtrack, although I'm glad it has no soundtrack.
right, the one we didn't start, but the soundtrack for Framing Device, is that,
It's all
that-
Derwat
is
stuff.
that Derwat? Right, right. And for folks who may not know, can you explain why Derwat is called Derwat?
Oh, okay. The name is from, do you know the writer Patricia Highsmith?
Just from you, yeah.
Okay, wrote the Ripley series, The Talented Mr. Ripley, but also Strangers in a Train, and also these really wicked books of short stories like Beastly Murders, Tales of Murder and Revenge by Cats, Dogs, Pigs, etc., and Mermaids on the Golf Course, about women who kind of have lost it. So anyways, in the Ripley, the middle two Ripley novels, Ripley's Game and Ripley Underground, there's this art forgery racket going on. Like Ripley has a friend who's good at forging paintings by this recently deceased artist named Derwat, who actually committed suicide. But Ripley and his art forger friend Bernard Tufts make up a lie that Derwat's in some cabin in Mexico knocking off masterpieces and doesn't want to be disturbed. I believe, I haven't seen it for years, in the movie American Friend by Wim Wenders with Udo Kier and Bruno Ganz and Dennis Hopper, that Derwat has an art opening. So they have to get an actor to be Derwat, which I've just always thought was funny, because, I'm obsessed with things like how Warhol would send out actors instead of himself, or people play that kind of game. I guess I'm obsessed with how there may not be something as the absolute self. So, this isn't me talking, this is Andrew James Patterson, who's a variation of whatever my actual self is. It is a persona. I read too much Irving Goffman, Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, when I went to university in Sociology 101.
So
As did many people read Irving Goffman.
So it's just inevitable. Well, there's a certain kind of freedom in persona or proxy. You also talk about gossip in the clip we just saw, which seems like a super significant part of Canadian video art history.
Oh, well, Colin Campbell, haha. The Gossip According to Colin Campbell, which John Davies curated. Brilliant title.
Yeah.
Two people I have a huge respect for, John Davies and Colin Campbell. But gossip, I have a love-hate with it, because I'm a gossipy person. I'm someone who is not thought to be trusted with a secret in many circles.
But yet you managed to hold on to that one for so long.
It's a way to kill time, though. In some ways, that's what it is. But in some ways, that's how I see conversation in many ways. Like, go in theater, I always thought, what if somebody crossed Samuel Beckett and Oscar Wilde? I love Waiting for Godot, but they're killing time towards the inevitable, which of course never happens. One of the things I like about Waiting for Godot is that actually the two personalities change. Like towards the second act, Estragon and Vladimir seem to exchange personalities. That fascinates me.
Yeah, they swap a bit.
But what if Beckett were Wilde and, had a more florid style of writing, and it was all about gossip and innuendo. And so, but early video art, people have remarked, maybe not so complimentary, about how so much early video art is not unlike Warhol movies. Like people who, they're not really acting, but they're also not necessarily themselves. Like, I think you go through Colin's work. I generally prefer the Colin Campbell works where it's only him, like the Malibu tapes or Sackville on Mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the others I'm fond of too, but you get these other people in them, and some of them, you know, like, oh, I'm supposed to be an actor, and it's like, well, you're not an actor. You're trying too hard to be an actor. You're making you're making a royal fool of yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done bits in other people's videos where I thought, oh dear, I'm supposed to be an actor, and I've done a little bit of acting, but I'm not an actor.
Well, I mean, you've talked about this idea that in terms of performance art, that people like to reach back and connect to theater, but often there's more of a connection to dance and movement. So there is this.
I think there's also a connection to sculpture and body sculpture in performance art. I mean, yeah, theater is contentious. I mean, I don't have any time for purism, you know, but I mean, I think a lot of the early performance art was coming out of certain dance, you know, like Judson, you know, Yvonne Rainer, Cage and Cunningham. I think, you know, their practices have more to do with, you know, I mean, sure, there's a theatrical element in like the happenings and all that, but I don't know. I don't want to go into too much of a sidetrack about performance art, because there's some people who do it who have nothing to do with other people who do it. And, you know, whether somebody interests me as an individual or not, you know, like, that's what gets my attention, and that's why I'll go see something they do.
Mhm.
So, I mean, in Toronto, you've got people as different as Tanya Mars and Bridget Moser, who I don't think have that much in common other than the fact that they both get on stage and perform.
It's true.
But I'm a fan of both of them, you know.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost running out of time for right now, but
concrete poems.
Oh yeah, I know. I don't have them on me, but they're in the world.
They're in the world, I guess, if you go to the site.
Yeah, and also we should mention your own website, which has basically an encyclopedic collection of all the things that you've done.
Well, I just recently.
Great, but maybe I wanted to. Okay, that's why it's so incredible at the moment. But I just wanted to maybe wrap by asking what you are working on currently. If anything, there's no pressure. It's a pandemic, so I want to resist.
I'm a little bit at sea. I keep doing these little concrete poems. I keep downloading various images, most of them involving either the weather, which has always been an obsession of mine, or weird zones like sky or weird landscapes or weird, you know, zodiac patterns or something like that. But I'm not sure that they're going to go into some kind of an entity or that. I'm actually working on a poetry book by a deceased friend. Like in the morning, I get things from the guy at the publisher saying, you know, do you like this image? Do I like this image? Do I like this image? And he's designing, but I'm glad he's asking for my input. In a way, that's what I'm on. I have a manuscript I submitted to a local publisher that I don't know about yet. In some ways, I see myself moving towards the writing world and maybe doing these little book videos, because one thing actually lists and capitals and framing device have in common is in many ways they're books. Mm-hmm. There's a Godard film I saw in 2019. I can't remember the title of it. I just saw it on this horribly cold day. But I think Godard actually called it a video book. And I saw this when I was working on the sequence of images that, you know, wound up being in framing device. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And when I was younger, I went through my Godard phase. I mean, back to lists. I used to sort of think any Hollywood director not quoted by Godard was irrelevant. Like, these directors are important. List, 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 list. Some people would say that being obsessed with lists is, you know, being hierarchical, but maybe it's also the opposite. It's finding out omissions within hierarchies. Or, this is my list. To hell with your list, this is my list. Or, you know, lists are a cousin of canons. but maybe some of them are anti-canons.
Or slightly more expansive
Yeah.
canon. Yeah.
But at the same time, you're restricting them, or maybe you're not.
Well, it's been a total pleasure to talk with you this afternoon
It's always been a
and
pleasure
hear
to talk
about
with
your
you,
work.
Kathleen.
So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you when people can do that, which is sort of now, but not really.
I should
So
maybe come around the AGO one day. I've yet to see the Arbus show.
worth noting, the AGO is open. Yes,
Yes.
open with certain restrictions in place. But yeah, we have been open, and we should make a plan. But until then, I will see you.
Yeah.